Welcome to the Winning Platform Owner Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to enabling ServiceNow platform owners with valuable knowledge, tools, and strategies. In this episode, we're going to unpack the three key elements to your platform operating model for the ServiceNow platform. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. Well, welcome to the show, everyone. If you're joining for the first time, a big welcome to you and welcome back to the rest of the team of Winning Platform Owners. I'm Ben Pierce, your host on the Winning Platform Owner Podcast. This podcast is all about helping ServiceNow platform owners become winning platform owners. And winning means your organization is getting the most out of your investment in the platform, and you are upping your game as a platform owner every single day. I have the privilege of speaking with platform owners from various different types of organizations, and I absolutely love doing it. I love doing what I can to help them succeed. That's what this podcast is all about. That's what my content out on LinkedIn is all about. I just love helping people succeed at being a ServiceNow platform owner. One thing in all these conversations that I get to have pretty much on a daily basis, one thing that sticks out is platform owners universally have to do one thing when they're managing the ServiceNow platform, and that is establish an operating model for their platform. And a lot of times it shows up most when someone new steps into the role, right? They're stepping into the ServiceNow platform owner role for the very first time. They may have been a developer or maybe a BA for a ServiceNow platform, and now they're stepping into that role. Or they may just be coming into it from another application management type of role or even a product management type of role. So what happens is you start to understand as a platform owner, and maybe you're in this spot where you go, I can't just manage this thing shooting from the hip. I can't manage my team that way. I can't add value to the organization. I need a platform operating model. And many times people aren't calling it that. They're thinking about all the things that they need to have in place to run the platform effectively, to add value for the organization effectively. And sometimes they don't use those terms, but essentially they're searching and putting together pieces for their platform operating model. So if you're in that position as a platform owner, ServiceNow has some excellent guidance on this topic, predominantly in their Center of Excellence and Innovation, or COEI, content. And I said that really fast, so let me slow that down a little bit. It's called Center of Excellence and Innovation, and you'll hear a lot of people refer to it as COEI. So go search that up on ServiceNow's site. You get a lot of good content around really how you should put together a platform operating model. And if you're a platform owner and you haven't heard that term or you haven't checked it out, you absolutely should put that on your list to do today, actually. It provides you a framework for putting together that operating model. What I'd like to do in this episode for you and the rest of the winning platform owners that are listening today is focus on kind of the key things, and there's three of them, that I believe the COEI helps you to implement for your platform operating model. These are things that I think are key, right? And the reason I think they're key is because they come up time and time again as I'm helping platform owners manage the platform well, right? I want to talk about the three key areas, and we'll lay them out first and then we'll unpack them for you, okay? So the three key areas that a good platform operating model helps you in as a platform owner is, one, it helps you establish a lean governance structure. Two, it helps you establish your demand management and your delivery processes. And 3, your good operating model is going to help you with your team and team structure. So you have governance, you have demand and delivery processes, and you have team and team structure. If you're attacking those 3 areas when you're putting together your platform operating model, most likely you're going to be successful. And that's what the COEI content helps you to do. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the COEI today, but we're just going to focus on these 3 key things. And hopefully it'll be a benefit to you. There'll be some key nuggets that you can take away and use as you're getting things in order for your ServiceNow platform instance and to create value for your organization. All right, so let's talk about the first thing, lean governance structure. And before we dive into aspects of it, let's talk about the problems that it solves for you as a platform owner. So if, as a platform owner, you are having a problem with understanding what to actually deliver on the platform, what's going to add value for my organization. If you're making those decisions all by yourself, and it's kind of a guessing game, and you're just trying to solve the problem of doing the right thing on the platform, the things that add value for your organization, governance will solve that problem. If you're a platform owner and you're having a problem around just managing your backlog and prioritizing that, and then going from backlog to value delivered into the platform, governance will help you solve that. And then finally, if you are struggling with technical debt, if you have a hard time upgrading because of all of the technical debt and customization on the platform, or if you are having a hard time just implementing things because other stuff keeps popping up that is technical debt, then governance helps you solve that problem. So it's a good tool. Governance is a great tool. You can't go too heavy with it. That's the key. And that's why I say lean governance structure. So let's talk about just kind of the 3 areas that you need to have in place, again, in the area of governance. So the first area of governance that you need to have in place is strategic governance. That's going to solve your first problem of knowing what to actually deliver on the platform that's most valuable to the organization. Strategic governance is going to help you put some guardrails around this is what we're going to do on the platform and this is why. And it'll help you with measuring outcomes because everything will be tied to a business outcome. So strategic governance, very important in your lean governance structure. The second thing is your demand and delivery governance and structure. The governance around your demand management process and then the delivery process. And I'm not talking about the process per se, I'm talking about the governance around it. Who gets to prioritize things on the backlog? Who gets to prioritize what goes into a sprint? How long are the sprints? Those types of things. That's your governance around demand and delivery. And that we'll talk more about that in our second point for demand and delivery processes. The third area of governance that you need, and again, needs to be lean, but this really needs to be there. That's your technical governance. That's governance over things like how the developers configure things, how they script things if they need to script. When do you customize? When do you not? Those types of things, keeping governance over the technical aspects of the platform, ultimately to keep your technical debt as low as possible. You can't always have technical debt of 0. There are some good reasons why you would carry technical debt from a business perspective, but that technical governance helps you manage that and hopefully keep it very low. So that's key number 1 that needs to be in your platform operating model. Governance and specifically 3 flavors of it. You need the strategic governance, you need the demand and delivery governance, and you need the technical governance. All right, well, let's talk about number 2. I almost said number 3. We're not there yet. Number 2, second key in a good platform operating model is your demand and delivery processes. This is different from the governance. So the governance is kind of the who's making the decisions and what are the guardrails around those decisions. Like we will do demand management and we will prioritize things, for example. What I'm talking about here is the process of demand management. How will we do intake? It will be a catalog item in our service catalog, and it will create a demand record, and we will move through and process those demand records weekly and turn them into backlog items. That's the kind of process level that I'm talking about here. So you need to have demand process in place where you have good intake, you have good grooming and processing of those demands, and they make it into the backlog, and then the backlog is picked up by your delivery processes. And that's the next thing. The delivery processes are all about really how things get from backlog to production. And again, not talking about governance here like, hey, governance would be, we are going to promote things from dev to test to prod. That's the rule. But what's the process for that? You need to put that in place. And to even back up one step, what's your process for how you develop, right? Are we on 2-week sprints? Certainly you need to be using agile development practices for ServiceNow. That waterfall I guess you could do it, but it's not effective at all. You need to approach things in an agile manner. So what are our sprints looking like? How do backlog items get into the sprint? How do they move into development, and how are they moving through our delivery pipeline? And then how do we promote? We know the rules. It has to go from dev to test to prod, but what's the process of that? It's almost procedural, but it has to be there, right? Those demand and delivery processes have to be there in your operating model. You can't really let them kind of organically happen. That's not to say that you're making them up all by yourself as a platform owner. Certainly the team's going to be involved in making them the best they can be. But the point is they have to be defined and they have to be laid out, and everybody has to follow those processes, right? That's part of a good platform operating model. It makes you predictable. It makes you flow value instead of spurting value into production. Every once in a while, you start to gain a rhythm and a flow, and value starts to just consistently come out of the end of that pipe into production. So demand and delivery processes is the number 2 key. Let's talk about the number 3. Number 3, the third key for a good platform operating model is team structure. And I want you to think about this kind of from 2 different perspectives. The first is your team structure today. You know, probably the question, it could be the question I get most. I'd have to sit here and think about it, but I get asked a lot. Ben, what is the minimum viable team structure that I can have as a ServiceNow platform owner? And in a way, I don't like the question because sometimes you can tell it's coming from a place where they're like, hey, I just need to get by with as little as possible. That's not always the case. A lot of times platform owners are like, hey, I just don't have everything, right? I don't have unlimited budget. So what do I do? What's the most important role? And when it's coming from that kind of a perspective, it seems more palatable to me, but that's just me. But that's the question I get. And it's a good question, right? Because it's, hey, what do we do today? What should our team look like today? And there are specific roles for the platform. You're probably familiar with some, if not all of them. ServiceNow has some good content on this as well. It's part of the COEI, but there's some other content around these different roles. But you have things like your platform administrator, your admin, you have a developer role, you have an architect role, a business analyst role. And so think about your team from that perspective first. What's my current need? The platform operating model has to take that into account because it's the reality. You have to look at are there gaps today? What kind of skills do we need? What kind of roles do we need? And that can kind of come from what you're supporting on the platform, what you have to do in the near horizon, like the next 3 months, the next 6 months. So that's part of team structure. And you say, Ben, well, how does that fit into operating model? And really I go back to, well, it's one of those things you just have to tackle it, right? It's like the beginning foundational piece of getting things done is that team structure. So if you're a platform owner and you're listening to this and you are in the middle of like implementing a brand new implementation of ServiceNow, pay attention to your team structure right now. Lay the groundwork for that. You'll be very glad you did. The other perspective to look at team structure from, and this is more in line with what we probably think about when we're thinking platform operating model, is the scalability of your structure, the structure going forward. Like, how do you manage that structure? How do you grow it? How do you shrink it if necessary? What are the rules of the road? How do you think about those things? That is something that if you can think about it ahead of time and you have a plan for your scalable structure, then it helps you out so much. And it's part of a good operating model is that scalable structure. So what does that really look like in practice? Well, what you can do is, first of all, look at ServiceNow's guidance around how they structure a team. They kind of have like a target architecture in that COEI content around what a good team structure should look like. And if you look at some of the diagrams that are kind of, desired end state or, perfect world end state, it gives you a good idea of, okay, here's all of the different roles. Here's how they play together. And so it kind of helps you understand what the recommended end state is, because that helps you then go, okay, we don't need that today, but we may need it in the future. And this is what the structure could look like. Then the question becomes, well, we're here today. Here's our desired end state in terms of structure. How do we get there? And when do we get there? And that's all based really, in my mind, on your roadmap predominantly. So your strategic roadmap for the platform is going to help you to go, okay, we're going to need to expand out our development area in these particular practice areas, these application areas. Maybe it's in the HR, SD, or maybe it's in GRC or something like that, or just ITSM, because we're going to be growing there. A lot of people are picking up various different applications, not just ITSM anymore on the ServiceNow platform. So it really depends on what your organization's strategic roadmap looks like. And then the other thing is just volumes, right? Volumes of work, volumes of demand. That'll help you understand how to scale. But you really need to have that structure in mind, like your target structure of your team when it's its biggest and it's taking care of everything. And again, go back to the COEI, look at the team structure content in there, and that helps you kind of think about developing that team structure, what it should look like, and then you can move to that structure. It gives you a scalable model to move to and work inside of, if that makes sense. So that's number 3. We started with number 1. The first key to the platform, to a good platform operating model, is governance, and specifically lean governance. Then we talked about demand and delivery processes. That's the second key. And then the third key is team and team structure. If you can take care of those 3 things in your platform operating model, it's going to take you a long ways. And there'll be still more to do, I assure you. But those 3 things are kind of the key things to hone in on, especially if you're new platform owner. You can check and see, kind of take the temperature of your environment and your team and your governance and figure out where you're at. The other thing is, if you're brand new at implementing the platform, pay attention to these 3 areas and build out what's necessary there to help yourself out in the long run, and you'll be very glad that you did. Well, that's the content I had for you for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Until next time, all the best in your ServiceNow platform owner journey. If you loved this episode, do me a favor, share it with somebody who you think might enjoy it as well. I'll see you out there on LinkedIn. I've had a couple of people hit me up out there, and we've just had some great conversations, so don't be shy about doing that. I'm out on LinkedIn. I'll put that link in the show notes of this podcast. Hey, thanks for listening. We will see you next time on the Winning Platform Owner Podcast.